Hello and welcome. Today we're going to crack open a window into one of the most complex things in the entire universe, the living human brain. We're going to be talking about an incredible technology called Positron Emission Tomography, or PET for short, that lets us, well, literally watch the brain while it works. So, let's just jump right in with the central question. For pretty much all of human history, the brain was a total black box, right? We could only really study it after someone had passed away. The idea of seeing its chemistry, the actual processes of thinking and feeling while a person was still alive and kicking, that was pure science fiction. So how on earth do you see something that's invisible?
Well, the answer is PET. And you got to understand, this isn't just another picture like an X-ray or an MRI. PET is what we call functional imaging. It doesn't just show you the structure of the brain, it shows you what the brain is doing, what's happening on a molecular level, all without making a single cut. It's amazing. And the level of detail it can show us it's just staggering. I mean, we're talking about mapping out how the brain uses fuel, watching blood flow in real time, tracking neurotransmitters like dopamine as they fire. You can even see how a new medication is actually working inside the brain. It's kind of like having a live dashboard for the brain's entire biological engine.
Okay, so how does this machine pull off such an incredible trick? It all boils down to a really clever bit of biological spying, using something we call a molecular spy, or if you want to get technical, a radio tracer. So this spy is really cool. It has two parts. First, it's a molecule that the brain already knows and uses, something like glucose, which is just sugar. But, and this is the key, it's attached to a tiny, short-lived radioactive atom that acts like a little GPS tracker, sending out a signal that the scanner can pick up. And the most common spy they use is a molecule called 18F-FDG. Now, the reason it's so popular is pretty simple. Your brain is an absolute energy hog. It just devours glucose for fuel. So if you can create a spy that looks and acts just like glucose, you can follow it to see exactly where all that energy is being burned.
This is the brilliant Trojan horse move right here. Your brain cells, especially the really active ones, are hungry for fuel, so they gobble up this 18F-FDG tracer just like it's real glucose. But here's the trick. Once it's inside the cell, the tracer gets stuck. It's chemically trapped. Unlike real sugar, it can't be fully broken down. So it checks in, but it can't check out.
All right, so we've got these little spies trapped inside the most active brain cells. How does that turn into one of these detailed brain maps we see? Let's walk through the whole process, from start to finish. It's really a beautiful, logical, four-step process. First, the tracer gets injected and travels through your blood up to your brain. Then, the most active, energy-hungry cells grab it the fastest. Because it gets trapped, the tracer starts to build up in these hot spots of brain activity. And finally, as those little radioactive tags on the tracer naturally decay, they send out signals that the PET scanner picks up. The machine then puts all that data together to build this vibrant 3D map showing exactly which parts of your brain are working the hardest.
So now we've got this incredible map of brain activity. What do we do with it? Well, this is where PET goes from being a cool piece of tech to a life-changing diagnostic tool for some of the toughest diseases out there.
Let's start with movement disorders. A lot of these, like Parkinson's disease for example, are tied to problems with very specific chemical systems deep inside the brain in an area called the basal ganglia. And here, a picture really is worth 1,000 words. Look on the left. That's a healthy brain. And you can see this bright symmetrical signal for dopamine activity that's a key chemical for controlling movement. But then, you look at the scans from someone with Parkinson's and you see this clear, lopsided drop in that activity. PET lets doctors physically see that chemical deficit, and they can often match it up, seeing reduced activity on the side of the brain that controls the part of the body where symptoms first appeared. And here's what's really profound about this. PET can actually spot these changes in dopamine long before a person shows the classic, noticeable symptoms of the disease. That power of early detection, it's absolutely critical. It's the key to developing treatments that could one day slow or maybe even stop these kinds of diseases in their tracks.
Now let's switch gears to another huge challenge in medicine: dementia. Trying to figure out the exact cause of someone's cognitive decline can be incredibly tricky. But PET gives us this remarkable clarity by showing us the unique metabolic signature that each disease leaves behind.
So with Alzheimer's, when we use that glucose spy, 18F-FDG, we're not looking for hot spots. We're actually looking for the opposite, cold spots, areas of abnormally low energy use,
what doctors call hypometabolism. And it's not just random. Alzheimer's has this classic pattern of cold spots that show up in very specific parts of the brain. You can just see the difference so clearly compared to the healthy, uniformly active brain.
And how reliable is this signature? Well, the sensitivity of PET in spotting this pattern for an Alzheimer's diagnosis is over 90%. Think about that. That kind of accuracy is an absolute game changer for patients and their families who are desperate for clear answers. What's more, PET can help tell different types of dementia apart. For instance, if the slowdown is happening in the visual processing centers of the brain, that might point towards Lewy body dementia. If the cold spots are in the front of the brain, that's a hallmark of frontotemporal dementia. Each disease really does leave its own unique footprint.
And finally, let's talk about epilepsy. For some patients, medications just don't stop their seizures. Surgery can be an option, but it only works if the doctors can find the exact, precise spot in the brain where the seizures are kicking off.
This is where PET becomes an essential roadmap for surgeons. I mean, the research here says it all. That hypometabolism, the cold spot of low energy use on the scan, it lines up almost perfectly with the epileptogenic foci, which is just the scientific term for the spot where seizures start. Put simply, the cold spot marks the spot.
And the impact this has on treatment is huge. PET can pinpoint the target for surgeons with incredible accuracy, even when a regular MRI looks totally normal. That precision leads to better surgical outcomes and often helps patients avoid much more invasive procedures where doctors have to place electrodes right on the brain to find the source.
So, we've seen how powerful PET is for diagnosis, but its importance goes way beyond that. It's actually getting us closer to understanding the fundamental secrets of the brain itself. When you get right down to it, PET imaging isn't just about finding what's broken. It's a key that unlocks our ability to watch the brain's chemistry live, in action. It's giving us this unprecedented view into the mechanics of things like memory, emotion, maybe even consciousness itself. And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. For the first time, really, in human history, the invisible world inside our own heads is becoming visible. As this window opens wider and wider, what new mysteries are we going to solve? And what will we be able to see next?